Good afternoon, Ukraine is on the line. My name is Henry Keane and we are UATV English, debunking Russian propaganda. That's what we do, by means of Ukrainian truth for all our global sake. Please join us and help Ukraine by watching this very episode, commenting and subscribing to our channel. Welcome to the News Bulls. See in this very episode, latest update from Russian Kursk, still under Ukrainian control. Ukrainian drones hit Moscow again. Trump welcomes Putin's three-day truce, calling it a lot. Ukrainian armed forces continue their operation in Russia's Kursk region. They're working quite hard to isolate Russian units near the village of Tyotkino and throughout the Glushkovsky district, according to the Institute for the Study of War. According to the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, on May 4th, Ukrainian forces struck a Russian command center for reconnaissance near Tyotkino, reportedly eliminating up to 20 Russian soldiers. Andriy Kovalenko, head of the Center of Countering Disinformation at Ukraine's National Security and Defense Council, confirmed that Russia has been training drone operators there. Russian sources also say that on the night of May 4th, Ukrainian forces intensified drone strikes and artillery fire on Tyotkino before launching an assault in that direction.
Russian mill bloggers claim that Ukrainian forces destroyed a bridge over the Seam River between Zvany, northwest of Glushkov, and Tetkino. Other Russian mill bloggers claim that Ukrainian forces are also using drones to interdict Russian logistics in the area. From the ISW publication.
Widespread panic. Why is that? I wonder, has reportedly gripped Russia over developments in the Kursk region. Russian propaganda media are reporting that Ukrainian armed forces are attempting to break through into the region, which already happened once, but they're still there. The report heavy shelling that has been recorded near the village of Tyotkino in Glushkovsky district. A bridge was blown up near the settlement of Zvany. Russians claim the attack was repelled and, of course, Ukrainian units were pushed back. Russian Telegram channels are massively sharing content showing the supposed successful destruction of Ukrainian forces in the area, while at the same time, one of the pinned posts from as far as back August 21 still reads, "Our soldiers on the Kursk front need our help to repel the enemy's offensive." Well, they actually need it for 9 months in a row by now, as the operation in the Kursk region has been ongoing for 9 months and has achieved already most of its objectives.
Thanks to our active operations in the Kursk region, we have prevented the enemy from launching an offensive campaign in Sumy and Kharkiv oblasts. The buffer zone established by Ukraine's defense forces in the border areas remains effective to this day. Oleksandr Syrsky, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine.
And without any bragging, Ukrainian defenders are once again first in the world, obviously, because they have simply no other choice. This time, Armed Forces of Ukraine destroyed a sophisticated advanced special marine radio location system of the Russians called a Zaslon. The system was capable of detecting targets at a distance of up to 300 kilometers, was destroyed for the first time ever. This was reported by the Unmanned Systems Forces of Ukraine on Monday, May 5th, and a video of the actual destruction was published. Russians installed the Zaslon radar on a wheeled chassis, and it was destroyed by drone operators of the 413th Separate Battalion of Unmanned Systems RAID. The military did not disclose, actually, the exact location and exactly the details of Russian radar was destroyed, but note that it happened for the first time ever that a marine radar was destroyed on land. That Zaslon is a new generation Russian shipboard radar system. It is designed to search, detect and track various air and surface targets. In addition, it is capable of recognizing and classifying detected targets at a distance of up to 300 kilometers and simultaneously tracking up to 200 objects. According to Russian sources, the cost of the Zaslon radar is over $50 million. Well, what could be better than destroying Russian marine radar costed $50 million? That's right, destroying Russian marine radar costed $50 million on solid ground. as it probably means that Russians started to dismantle their marine corvettes. Good for us. Ukrainian drone assault has led to temporary flight restrictions and several airports near Moscow. Russian authorities confirmed that on Tuesday. The strike occurred just 3 days before Russia is set to host a major parade marking the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II in Europe. They never actually mentioned they just started a World War III 3 years ago, of course. Still, according to Russian state media, drones targeted multiple regions across Russia, prompting airports in at least 5 cities, including the capital, Moscow, to halt operations. It still remains unclear for how long. Kiev, until now, has not officially commented on the operation. It is also not clear whether the timing of the attack was directly somehow linked to the upcoming Victory Day celebrations. Ukraine has regularly launched long-range strikes before into Russian territory in response to daily bombardments by Russian forces of Ukrainian cities. Just like this attack on Kharkiv that happened just last night. And during that same day, Russian drone attacks on Sumy, Kharkiv and Odessa killed 4 people and injured at least 11. Russia has announced that around 20 foreign leaders, including Chinese President Xi Jinping, are going to attend the Red Square parade on Friday. President Vladimir Putin has proposed a 3-day ceasefire during the event. However, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has rejected this offer, arguing that any meaningful truce must last at least 30 days to enable discussions on a potential peace agreement. He also claimed the ceasefire proposal was primarily aimed at reassuring the safety of international guests who are planning to visit Putin's beloved military show.
Our position is very simple in relation to all countries that have traveled or are traveling to May 9th. We cannot be responsible for what happens on the territory of the Russian Federation. They provide security for you, and therefore we will not give any guarantees, because we do not know what Russia will do on these dates. Volodymyr Zelensky, President of Ukraine, during a press conference.
Zelensky added over the weekend that Ukraine could not guarantee the safety of attendees at the upcoming event. And Moscow Mayor Sergei Sobyanin reports that 19 drones were intercepted over near the capital on Tuesday, while debris fell near a residential building and on a highway. No casualties or major damage were reported. Well, so far, it could be just a rehearsal, Let's wait for the actual parade, shall we? Let's also take a deeper look into the European new brave world. Europe without Russian gas and oil completely. Shall we?
According to a preliminary plan, the European Commission will propose banning new gas agreements with Russia and spot contracts as early as 2025, Bloomberg reports. The measures also include a ban on importing Russian fuel, both pipeline gas and liquefied natural gas. The exact timeline will depend on how quickly the EU can arrange alternative LNG supplies from other countries, particularly the US, Qatar, Canada and African nations, according to the British news agency. Significant volumes from the US and Qatar are expected to become available starting in 2027.
The Commission will also aim to boost transparency over the origin of EU gas supplies, according to the People. One option would be to force companies to share key details on volumes and contract durations with national authorities and the Commission. From Bloomberg publication.
Once the file is ready, then we move ahead to adopting.
We will have to wait a bit more until the adoption of the roadmap, which will precisely provide answers to those questions in greater detail.
The plan includes obligations for countries most dependent on Russian energy, specifically Slovakia and Hungary.
In 2027, the EU wants to end any energy imports from the Russian Federation. Total nonsense. This will only lead to further high prices and a further reduction in the competitiveness of the capabilities of European industry.
At the same time, the European Commission emphasized that Slovakia and Hungary will be able to secure alternative sources of supply. European officials believe that phasing out Russian gas should not significantly impact prices or the EU's energy security. Analysts are confident that global LNG supply will increase in the coming years.
The EU is replacing Russian energy not only through diversification of supply, but also by investing in energy-saving and efficiency projects. In addition, the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism is being introduced, which limits the import of goods into the EU with a high carbon footprint. Another critical part of replacing Russian gas is the development of renewable energy sources, solar, wind, and bioenergy.
Since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine began, EU countries have cut their imports of Russian gas from over 40% to 19%, equivalent to 23 billion euros, according to Bloomberg. Russia still supplies LNG from its fields to France, Belgium, and Germany via France, as well as to Spain. In December 2024, 10 EU countries, including Finland, Poland, and the Baltic states, urged the European Commission to ban Russian energy imports as soon as possible.
Gazprom is already in a catastrophic financial state, operating with huge losses, about 15 to 20 billion euros annually. If it loses another 40 billion euros, the damage could be irreparable. Gazprom would essentially be bankrupt, and the Russian state budget would have to prop it up just to keep it afloat. The alternative would be to drastically raise domestic gas prices in Russia to support Gazprom. There's no way for Gazprom to find a replacement for the European market, which remains the most economically attractive.
According to Reuters, with the shutdown of the Yamal Europe and Nord Stream pipelines and the closure of the Ukraine transit route starting January 2025, Gazprom is left with only one operational pipeline to Europe, Turk Stream. Reported by Alexandra Zaslavets, Kristina Dombrovskaya, UATV News.
Dictator Putin announces another 3-day truce in the Russian-Ukrainian war. Obviously, during the Victory Day celebrations in Russia. It is scheduled to start at midnight on May 8th and will last until midnight on May 11th. United States President's Special Representative Keith Kellogg previously rejected the Kremlin's offer of a 3-day truce, stating that the United States is interested in a long-term ceasefire, as well as Ukraine. British intelligence in turn believes that the Kremlin leader's 3-day truce to mark May 9th is intended to show Russia's alleged openness to some kind of an agreement and limit Ukraine's long-range strikes for a while, at the same time not worsening Russia's positions on the front. However, US President Donald Trump believes that this Russian dictator's proposal is, I quote, a lot.
As you know, Putin has just announced a 3-day truce, which doesn't seem like a big achievement, but it's a lot, considering where we started. Donald J. Trump, President of the United States.
Well, it is a lot indeed, some may say, right? But it's wrong. Is a truce with Russia, even if that is a religious holiday, never is a truce. Here is what it is. So let's get it straight. So for 3 years in a row, Putin wages war against Ukraine, and now he wants a 3-day truce to safely rejoice victory, regroup and look like a peace dove. And Trump says it's a lot. But what if Russia will act as Russia, as it always has acted, and after the 3 days truce, after it starts, Russia actually attacks civilians, kills more children in Ukraine, and we give the evidence of that to the world and to President Trump? Will President Trump accept this evidence and agree that it actually happened only because Ukraine says so? And even if he will, Russia knows there will be no action, just words. Trump said he was not happy when Russia killed Ukrainian children in Sumy with cluster bombs. And that's it, just words. No actions powerful enough to stop them. It makes me wonder about the mathematics of this war. Even if 12 Ukrainian children murdered by Vladimir Putin has made Trump not happy, how many more children should Ukraine feed to Putin to make the world and Trump actually acting properly? You know, those 500% tariffs on Russia will actually be nice. What is actually a lot is when someone who consistently positions himself as a supporter of Trump's declared principle of Make America Great Again, and who was once an ardent opponent of continuing military aid to Ukraine, then radically changes his heart after a trip to Ukraine.
If Russia is not stopped and Ukraine is allowed to suffer defeat, the next victim of Russian aggression will be Moldova, followed by the Baltic states. Therefore, the United States must arm Ukraine to the teeth, because this is the only way to prevent a large-scale Third World War in which NATO will inevitably be drawn. The spiritual advisor of U.S. President Donald Trump, Pastor Mark Burns.
As Mark Burns saw with his own eyes, not in stories on his smartphone, the crimes committed by Russia against humanity in general and Ukrainian people in particular, since then, Burns has been advocating at all possible levels the importance of not only continuing but strengthening aid to Ukraine in its defense against Russian aggression. Why? Easy. Not because Mark Burns all of a sudden became so very pro-Ukrainian, no, but because he all of a sudden grasped a bare fact: continuing support for Ukraine, which is resisting Russian invasion with unwavering steadfastness, is one of the key interests of the United States, if it does not want, of course, to be forced to do it on its own in the nearest future. Well, that's it, folks. Thanks for watching. I'm Henry Keane and we are UATV English. It was News Pulse. See you in the next big already tomorrow.